very often we're hungry, but we're not really hungry. I know that one of the things that trigger me to eat the wrong thing very often is just boredom. It's not actually hunger, but my body will innately create a hunger pain to distract me from boredom.
Great morning, world! Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon!
Great morning, world. It's your boy Dragon here for another Rise Up with Dragon. So just as a quick reminder, it is the goal of this podcast, Rise Up with Dragon, to remove the blindfolds of your programmed mind and widen your field of consciousness so that the full spectrum of your great potential becomes available to you. That is my hidden agenda, but not hidden because I'm telling you. We do this with our podcast, Rise Up with Dragon, our weekly blog, which we call The Dragon's Lair, one from the vault. If you're not subscribing to our newsletter, real simple and free, go to riseupwithdragon.com and click on blog and sign up for that. So we do this with our podcast and our blog, as well as our upcoming, very excited, our upcoming online courses and our books that are coming very, very soon. So welcome to another edition of Rise Up with Dragon. It is wonderful to be here. Today's Rise Up is called Hunger Games. And this is definitely going to be one for the vault, and then after one from the vault. Before I do that, though, I want to come raw for a second and just give you a current reality check, because this is not just for you; it's for me as well. It's kind of like being in that show, The Real World. Sometimes I like to make a confessional because it's me using my interface response system. It's me making observations about myself. And it'll tie into today's as well. So a lot of things going on in Dragonville, right? Which is a place, right? It's my plant on planet Dragon, Dragonville. And a lot of them are attached to responsibility. And I think that, for those of you that struggle in any way, shape, or form with, any realm of anxiety or depression or anything like that, very often those are connected to being responsible or making attempts to control things that are out of your control. So right now in Dragonville, on planet Dragon, I've got a lot of responsibilities, and they're attached to financial responsibilities. I'm in one of those patterns of life right now where I've got my shit together and I'm doing very, very well, but different things are coming from different places, unexpected things that are saying, hey, it's like I walk around and I have a big pouch of money, and a lot of things, or a lot of hands go in it and take, from it, as well as ones that I wasn't expecting. So my observation of that is that could cause, and does sometimes cause, me, one, to wake up in the morning in a victim mentality, like, and this sensation might be, it might affect your breathing, your body, and things like that. You might feel that you might label it as overwhelmed, and you might find yourself going, right? So I've been observing that that's the first thing that I wake up with. In fact, it wakes me up early sometimes. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is I just want you to know that there's never going to be this, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow where you don't have to face adversity. That's why I'm wearing the Embrace the Suck shirt today as well. So the good news is that what I do is I do the things. A friend of mine, I heard in this big event, this virtual event I was involved in this weekend, this amazing thought leader, Megan Valentine, she says, the secret to her success is she wakes up and she just does the things. So in the sense of doing the things, I get into my routine, so I woke up, I didn't feel right. I didn't feel motivated. I was scared. I said, thank you. I started off with gratitude, and progressively, as I went through what I call my Rise Up Great Day morning, my model morning, it wasn't easy, but it did get easier. And then I got to the hardest part was when I jumped on the Peloton this morning. Chicken's still asleep, jumped on the Peloton, and I committed to not just a ride, but a hard ride, like a 45-minute, but hit ride. Didn't want to do it, but I did the things. So after I got off of that, I was like noticeably better, 50, 60%. And what I mean by better is it was very, very clear that I was way, way less bought into what it is that I thought was my reality, right? So that's the distinction, is all of these things are going on, but they have a tendency of making us think that that's the only thing. And if we buy into that and we place a lot of value in it, it can become your reality, and it can just suck the life out of your day. But by getting into the structure and going through the motions and doing the things, what happens is it's kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, it just clears the plate, and it gives you the space to make more rational decisions, see things, as I say in my book, holographically. So then at the end of that, Chicken and I had to deal with some things that we don't like to deal with in the morning, with mileage and travel. And, we got some good news, we got some bad news, we had some easy things, we had some tough things. But once again, because I went through the motion and I did the things, I was ready to kick some ass. So just wanted to share that with you in real time. So before I jump into the Hunger Games, I always like to tell you kind of where my motivation comes from. So right now, I'm a big, big fan, and I have to thank Ryan Holiday, just an amazing guy. And I've read all of his stuff, and I listened to him, but he turned me on. It's like a book scavenger hunt. Every time I read a book, I find out about another book. So I just buy all the books. I've got a lot of books, read about a book a week, thanks to Jim Quick. But anyway, I'm reading a book right now that is just amazing. It's called The Laws of Nature by the author Robert Greene. And this is it's a huge book. And Robert Greene, I want to get you, I'm going to have him on my show, whether he knows it or not. So I'm reading that this morning, and I caught something, and this is where the motivation and the stimulation comes for the rise ups, and I go through that in my book. I teach you how to do this. So I caught something really empowering and encouraging. And what it was is he reminds us that we are all self-assessment, self-reflective. We are all self-absorbed and locked into our own worlds. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, to be self-absorbed, right? As a matter of fact, I don't think humans think, say, or do anything that doesn't have value. So we've redefined what the word selfish means. So what I'm saying right now is it's okay to be self-absorbed sometimes, right? But it really just depends on what it is that you're absorbed in, what version of yourself, right? So we're locked into this idea of our own worlds. Because of this, we don't have the ability often to recognize that our reality, this is cool, this is where I started my day-to-day, our reality doesn't necessarily exist outside of this world that we're locked in and self-absorbed. It's actually a perception of ourselves, this world that we're locked in and self-absorbed with. So this is why, by the way, we love movies. Side note, we saw Halloween last night, and it was just awful. We had to see it because we always go to see the Halloween shows, but it was just one of the worst movies ever. It's really gotten silly at this point. But this is why we love movies and stories, and we love to read books, because it gives us a break from ourselves. So there's some magic in that. That might be what you're getting when you listen to my podcast, or watch it on a video or something like that. I know that that's what I get, is if I read something like Robert Greene's book, The Laws of Nature, and I get absorbed into his stuff and his words, part of the value of that is it's giving me a break from myself. So I love this because it reminds me of the importance in recognizing that, the way we see things is really just that, the way we see things, not necessarily the way they are. That's a valuable, valuable gift right there. So Chicken and I, right now, getting into the Hunger Games, this is a really, really cool concept. And I hope you like the way I catch these words. Like we saw the Hunger Games the other day, and I was like, what does that mean? Is that just about Katniss Everdeen, surviving for, defending her life and all that stuff? So Hunger Games, I started to say, it's interesting. So I looked at my current reality, and Chicken and I right now, along with thousands of others, are committed to a 6-week run. We're in this challenge right now, and it's just about trying to get streaks of perfect days of what it is that we said we were going to do and what we were going to commit to. So Chicken and I, by the way, timestamp, today is the 25th of October. Halloween's coming up. And I don't know if you're listening to this, on record, but I like to give you a timestamp of when it is. But we're on a 6-week run right now because we're going to actually have our wedding ceremony. We're already married, but we're going to have our wedding ceremony in Cape Town, South Africa in December. So we're having this like perfect run of being 100% perfect on our fueling program. And that's one of the portals of entry to work with Chicken and Dragon as we coach thousands and thousands of people on this program, and it works, man. But we're on that program as well as working on things like exercise and intake, which is part of my morning routine. Those are the things that I do, right? So as we're sitting on the couch the other day, this is where Hunger Games came about. Sitting on the couch the other day, we were having an interesting conversation about the feelings of hunger. So that's where I want to offer you to go today as you're listening to this. The feelings of hunger and how powerful they are regarding their impact on triggering our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Think about hunger. What is hunger, right? But think about how hunger triggers us to do things. Very often things we don't want to do. So we decided to, in that conversation, we were talking about hunger, we decided to practice the IRS, the Interface Response System strategy and system, and talk about the feelings and thoughts rather than let them ambush us. So that's a practice in cognitive distancing, right? Rather than just reacting to how you feel, observing and discussing it first. So that's what we decided to do because we're perfect on this program. We started to notice that we were having what we call a hunger day, right? We were really hungry. And when we're hungry, we're not hungry for like eating like Atlantic salmon and kale, right? We want to eat something naughty. So if you're not conscious of this, and that's what we practice in our household, we just make an attempt to shift from unconscious to conscious. And that's what we do when we distance and we talk. So if you're not conscious of this powerful potential, this power of hunger, this powerful potential and how we are programmed to respond to hunger pains. I mean, think about it. Why would we have hunger? Hunger is supposed to trigger you to put something in your body, right? We're taking it way out of proportion these days, but that's why you have hunger. So we're triggered, we're conditioned to respond a certain way to hunger pains. And then that is what I was referring to as the Hunger Games, right? It's the games refer to this push and pull of what's going on with us and our hunger. So hunger in general is a feeling like fear, right? It's another triggering feeling that is often groundless. I was talking the other day, in the spirit of my last podcast that'll drop, should be, if you're listening to this, it's already dropped, but we were just talking about groundless fears, right? But this is groundless hunger pains. Very often we're hungry, but we're not really hungry, right? I know that one of the things that trigger me to eat the wrong thing very often is just boredom. It's not actually hunger, but my body will innately create a hunger pain to distract me from boredom. It's interesting. So, however, even with a conscious awareness of the power of this sequence of hunger, it's still very hard to deny, right? So you still have to work at it. That's why you want to practice things like cognitive distancing and things like that. So now on the other side, so that's the whole hunger pain that like when you're hangry and things like that. But on the other side, there's another observation that I was having, because this is what happens when you start talking about a topic, you start to say, the hunger means other things as well. So on the other side, I have another observation of the power of hunger. So after coaching and mentoring, and this is a conversation I have a lot. So put your business hat on right now, put your success hat on right now, and I'm going to give you some gold. After coaching and mentoring thousands of people, and also observing success stories, and helping people build their business from home. That's what we do. We help people learn how to become financially free and build businesses around the things that matter most from home. We have a pretty interesting vantage point when it comes to what it takes to succeed, right? Because we've seen it. We've got this pooling of thousands of people that have all had the same opportunity, and we watch what it is, why two men enter, one man leads, right? There's a lot of concepts and theories about that, but I'm just going to share with you my observation, because everybody always asks me, what's the secret to success? Because they figure if I tell them, they'll apply it. It's not necessarily the right strategy. So success does come. Here's one thing I can tell you for sure. Success does come to those who do the hard work with consistency and no quit in them. Don't deny that. And I could tell the two people, one person enter, one man lead. I can tell them both that thing, but still only one will do it. So it can't just be that. So it does come from that, but it can't just be that. So, it has less to do with luck and talent, and it has more to do with grit and perseverance. I just want you to know that. Like, a lot of people get into these concepts that they have to learn and become somebody that can succeed at that. There's something to that, but it's less about that and it's more about grit. The people at the top of the mountain are not necessarily talented. I can tell you that. They're up there because they just outworked everybody. Interesting observation on my Peloton. When I was riding my Peloton today, I was, in this class, and I think there was like a couple thousand people riding with me. And at the end of the Peloton, or during the Peloton, especially when you do hit rides, they tell you to ride hard and then you take a break. So you can look at the leaderboard and you can see people like going really, really hard. And you can see the number, their output going up. And then when she says take a break, because it's a live class, you see people backing off. So I was just wondering, like, what would happen to my numbers if I went hard through the 10-second break? And it was unbelievable. I didn't just jump up, I jumped way up. So that kind of told me a little bit about hard work, and how far ahead it puts you from other people. And we'll talk about that. But what's the secret, right? What's the secret? That's what people really want to know. What's the secret? I know all that. I read all the books. What's the secret? So I get asked that all the time. So how do you know when you found, that's what people ask me, they go, how do you know when you found a winner that will go straight to the top? How do you know? Now, there's no guarantee of that because human beings can quit any day. But how do you know when you found somebody that is worth you investing your time in? And you'll see where this gets back into Hunger Games. So I say it's a great question, and there's one simple answer. I have found that anyone can, this is my answer, I have found that anyone can be great and successful. We all have equal opportunity. Some, by the way, some are gifted, and some have more access to it, typically because of the relationships that they've built. If people have great relationships, and that's a secret of success as well, is if you build great relationships full of respect and trust and follow through and all that stuff, and then with those relationships jump into some sort of a business, you might move faster than others, but it doesn't mean that you have a better chance at success, because you're still going to have to exhibit this secret that I'm going to share. But the defining moment I explain to people is this, and I want you to self-reflect when you're listening to this. The defining moment that I wait for that helps me identify whether or not somebody can go to the top is what I call the 3 strikes you're in rule. 3 strikes you're in. I don't think anybody's ever said that. I'm sure they have, but I've never heard anybody say it. So I'm just going to call that a dragon thing. Maybe I'll put that on my Instagram. I call it the 3 strikes you're in rule. And this is what it means. Meaning I look to see how people, I don't judge them based on all the other things. I do see those things, but I look to see how people react when they strike out. You want to see how powerful a human being is? Check them out when they fail, when they struggle, when they strike out, when the experience that is presented to them is one of letdown, betrayal, and circumstantial stuff, right? Do they quit? That's what I look for. When I'm working with someone and I'm like in that 1 month process of coaching people, because I don't like to work with people that are not going to succeed. And if I see that they don't have this trait that I'm sharing with you, it's not about me making money off of them. I don't want to fail, and I don't want them to fail. So it's like the 11th commandment says, thou shalt not kid thyself. I like to let people know, I don't know if you're ready for this right now, because that letdown made you decide that you might want to do something else? When somebody has a letdown or a failure or a circumstantial challenge, what happens next? Do they justify why they should try something else, right? Do they think that it's a competency problem? Like, this is not right for me. And then they start pulling straws like, this is bad timing, probably made a mistake with this. And then what they do in their head to distract themselves from it, because nobody wants to admit that they just didn't try, is they'll go try something else and do the same thing. Newsflash, it doesn't matter. I mean, you need a good structure. I feel like my business model is a Shangri-La utopia structure for people. You do need a vehicle that can take you from point A to point B, and there's time-tested proof that it does that. But it's more than that. You have to push through the adversities. That's why I'm wearing the embrace the suck. So do they quit? Do they justify that they should try something else? Or do they say next? So when I see someone strike out 3 times and keep going, that's the 3 strikes you're in, and keep going, I take them seriously. My intention, my vision is to serve millions and millions of people before I meet my maker, because when I go, I want to make sure that I made my time count and I matter. So if I'm going to work with people, I don't like to only look at the transactional side of what they're paying me. I think a lot of coaches out there, and I understand it doesn't make them bad people. If you're paying them a certain amount of money, they don't really have to care about your success, right? Because whether you win or lose, they're paying. And if you don't do the work, they're like, hey, I told them what to do, but they didn't do the work. I'm kind of a little bit past that. I used to be like that. Now, I don't care how much money somebody's paying me. I don't like to work with people that are not going to succeed because they're not doing the work. So striking out, remember, 3 strikes you're in. Striking out is more part of hitting a home run than the actual hit. Think about that for a second. Striking out is more part of hitting a home run than the hit. How's that possible? Because that's why we learn to embrace change and embrace the suck, like I'm wearing this shirt right now. The obstacle is the way, Ryan Holiday. We fail forward. The reason why we say all these things is because we all universally know that striking out is actually going to happen more than getting a hit. So I look for that. I want to know if somebody understands that. I could always step in when I see somebody back off of adversity and say, hey, did you know about this, about the success rate? But I know that they know that. So if they still back off and then they think that it's a competency problem, it's not that they can't be successful. It's not that they're not successful people. It's that they're not ready and open. And I'll share a little bit about that with the hunger pains as we close out. So we talk about that fail forward. So in fact, every personal growth book, here's an interesting observation. Every personal growth book that you are reading or have read, including, my stuff, my IRS, my podcast, everything, it's not teaching you how to avoid failures and obstacles. That's not what personal growth and self-development is. Think about it. Self-development is not about developing yourself into somebody that doesn't fail, right? They teach us how to actually manage them. It's not about eradicating the poop that stands in between you and what you desire. It's about training physically, mentally, and financially to manage the adversity. So why do we back off of the poop? Why do we back off of the adversity? So for me, I think it goes back to hunger. Think about that. They're winning the hunger games, the people that say 3 strikes, I'm in. It's part of it is recognizing it and understanding the process and the system for success, right? But the other one is actually practicing it. I mean, if you think about it, if you truly want to be successful, you should get excited when you wake up like I did this morning, feeling doubt and fear and overwhelm and stress. That's an obstacle. That's an obstacle that 95% of people turn away from and retreat and try to do something else. But if I'm a 3 strikes you're in guy, and by the way, it's way more than 3 strikes, but this is my initial observation. If I'm a 3 strikes you're in guy, I should get excited about the obstacle because it means it's proof that I'm in the game. So when you're hungry, the Hunger Games, when you're hungry, you don't stop until you eat. Think about that for a second. If you're actually hungry and you're having hunger pains, meaning you haven't eaten. I've done humanitarian work in Haiti, and I've seen kids try to kill themselves over like a quarter piece of a plantain. That's hunger, right? That's starving and stuff like that. Sometimes we just get hungry. Like I remember when I was 80 pounds overweight, I used to be like, I'm starving. But when you're hungry, you're truly hungry. You don't stop until you eat. So it's what the other side of, it's what's on the other side of all of your efforts, on the other side of the poop, and the strikes that you're having that determines how you handle them. So, the idea is that you want to keep focused on your goals. I love to refer to focusing on your goals as creating your North Star. If your North Star is shining so bright, meaning you can see it, you can feel it, you understand how it's attached to everything that matters most to you, then guess what's going to happen? You're not going to stop until you get it. So that's a big piece of winning the Hunger Games, is knowing the value of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. One of the things that gets in our way is us thinking that we don't deserve it. So there's a little bit of that stuff involved in it. But once you make a decision that you want something, you're ready for it, and you're going to have it no matter what, you don't even recognize that you're a 3 strikes you're in person, right? So then you'll find yourself winning the Hunger Games. That's what it means to win the Hunger Games, and sitting on top with the people looking at you, thinking that right, when you're up on top, not sitting up top with the people, when you're up on top, you'll all of a sudden become somebody that people from the bottom look up at and think that you're lucky and fortunate, right? So back to the idea, anybody can win the Hunger Games. So if you're losing the Hunger Games right now and you're finding yourself that you're pushing back from certain things in the face of adversity, it doesn't mean that you're not successful. It doesn't mean that you can't win. It probably, and it doesn't mean that you don't have hunger, right? You just have to create hunger. Now, most people create hunger by letting themselves going so long without eating and struggling that they wake up and they say, I used to want, I used to need, now I must. That's one way of doing it. The only problem with that is those people typically only win the Hunger Games long enough until they're full. And then they don't find that exponential part of success and growth by following through all the way. So my suggestion is when you look at your goal, attach a why. In the 15 days of discipline, I explain how to set goals like this, but attach a why to it, multiple whys, make it so important, but also make sure that you don't just make it a temporary fix. That's why if somebody wants to lose weight, well, then what do you do after you've lost the weight? You're only going to go gain it back. So it has to be more something like create health or something like that. So anyway, love and appreciate you all. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. I mean, tons and tons of people are downloading and subscribing. So it's just such an honor and a privilege to see that happening. We've got some amazing guests coming up. You've probably already seen a couple of them drop in the podcast. And sign up for the Dragon Slayer One from the Vault newsletter /blog. You go to Rise Up with Dragon and click on blog, and you can subscribe to that. And hope you're loving all the stuff. And I can't wait for all of the fun book stuff and online courses to come out as you guys come along and grow with me. If you want to find me on Clubhouse, I moderate a couple of rooms in there, and you can find me at Make Sense. And love and appreciate you. Have an amazing day.